Hi, everyone. This is Lauren Steiner. Welcome to this special edition of the Robust Opposition. I usually don't go live during the daytime, as you know, preferring to go live at night when people are home from work and watching. An emergency situation today. We have a bill, AB 398, that was just heard in the State Senate Environmental Quality Committee today. And it passed. It's a very bad bill. For those of you who saw my interview with R.L. Miller from Climate Hawks Vote a few weeks ago, we discussed this bill. And with me tonight, I have Adam Scow, who is the California Director of Food and Water Watch. He was actually in this hearing, and he's going to tell us more about it and what we need to do. How you doing, Adam?
Hey, Lauren. It's been a tough day, but we got to keep fighting.
Exactly. So to the viewers who did not see the show with R.L. Miller, why don't you tell us about AB 398, exactly what the bill does, and how it was crafted in secret, and by whom and with whom?
Sure. Well, AB 398 actually just dropped on Monday night around 6 o'clock and was initially scheduled to be voted on by the entire legislature today, but that has been pushed off till Monday, giving us a few extra days. As you noted, the Senate Environmental Quality Committee did pass it this afternoon. Governor Brown showed up and pressured everybody to vote for it, calling it a huge vote for everybody's life. And it sounded kind of desperate. The one thing he got right was that we do have a climate crisis and we need bold action. Again, Brown is getting the solution wrong, just like he got it wrong on fracking and refuses to ban fracking. He is once again accommodating the oil and gas industry with this bill, and their footprints are all over this bill. They are all there at this committee today supporting the bill. I'm talking about Sempra, SoCal Edison, PG&E. We know that Western States Petroleum Association has been quietly supporting the bill as well. It's very, very bad.
Now, let's talk about what the bill does, because there was a bill. I know Food and Water Watch wasn't supporting it, but most of the environmental justice groups were. It was Wieckowski's bill, SB 775, and that thing has absolutely no chance because the governor parachuted in with this bill written by Chevron. And basically, as one of the, as Margaret Okazumi, a fellow Bernie delegate from Sunnyvale, said when she was testifying on behalf of Climate Hawks Vote, she said this is a $90 million giveaway to PG&E, SoCal Edison, and Sempra, a tax break, and she called it a tax break for the oligarchy. And you also had choice words for Jerry Brown, and that they admonished you to direct your remarks to the committee. So why don't you tell us why this bill is bad?
Well, the bill is bad for many reasons, but the fundamental problem with extending cap and trade is that it allows polluters to pay their way out and evade real pollution reductions. And Brown in committee today was threatening everybody, saying, if you don't pass cap and trade, we're going to have command and control, which would actually force polluters to reduce their pollution, which is absolutely what we should be doing if we're taking this climate crisis seriously. So cap and trade is a big industry, a compromise. That's why they were all there supporting it. The unfortunate reality is that it undermines pollution reduction by raising money from the industry. And that money is a very problematic force in buying support for cap and trade. And, the oil and gas industry, Edison, Sempra, Chevron, have no problem paying for their pollution. This is why Food and Water Watch is also not so hot on the carbon tax. They have all the money in the world, and they are really happy to pay their way out instead of being forced to reduce their pollution directly. And that's why we want this bill to die. We don't want the legislature to pass any bill. The legislature did great work last year by passing SB 32, which says greenhouse gas emissions must be reduced by 40% by 2030. So they did their work. Cap and trade is not necessary. It's just mucking it up, letting the industry escape.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about more of the specifics because it said something to do with 72% of the offsets of the free allowances went to oil and gas in 2016. And this bill is going to increase the offset. So can you just explain for people, what is an offset? And then I want to get into the second part of the bill, which people seem to object to, which is that they were going to make it so local air quality boards could not measure the emissions.
Well, there's two things there, yeah, and I'll start with the second thing. The bill preempts local air quality districts from setting a more strict carbon or methane regulation. And that's, the Bay Area, up here in the Bay Area Air Quality Management District has been considering, there's a big fight about it, setting a local cap on greenhouse gas emissions. We have 5 major refineries here, and you have more than that in Southern California. These are huge polluters. So this bill, AB 398, prohibits local air quality districts from setting stronger greenhouse gas caps. On top of that, yes, there are free allowances, and this gets to the money-raising side of cap and trade. And the question is, well, some people said, well, we should be making the oil and gas industry pay more money for these allowances to pollute. And while we don't want to give the oil and gas industry a free ride, I think that's missing the bigger picture here. Paying to pollute, paying a little bit to pollute, paying a lot to pollute, pollution is the problem. Reducing pollution is the solution. It's more simple. So Chevron could pay $1 billion. They could pay $500 million. They could get a pass for a year. The most important thing in getting to a clean, livable future is to force these refineries and power plants to reduce their emissions at the source. That is what we have to do. That is the only guaranteed way. So Food and Water Watch, we're less interested in how much money we can get out of them. There's other forms of progressive taxation that we should be mandating in California across the board on all major corporations and wealthy people, and ensuring we have a fair taxation policy. But conflating climate policy with fundraising is not working.
Right. Now, there were a lot of people from Benicia there, which is where they have a refinery, and they said that 85% of the pollution in California comes from refineries, and 38% more from Benicia. So they're particularly hard hit there. And there was actually a 12-year-old girl. I thought her speech was very moving, even though she was clearly trying to memorize it, and get out what she had memorized. But she said, Earth is telling us a message, but we are blind and we cannot see. And so all those groups, those environmental justice groups, were there, opposing the bill. I want to talk about who was defending it, because I know that you and I have had conversations before about groups like, the National Defense, NRDC, National Resource Defense Committee and Council, and the League of Conservation Voters. Now, I didn't see the League there, but I have it on good authority that they have been told by their national office, that Jerry Brown called their national office and ordered them to support this bill. And we had NRDC and we had EDF, the Environmental Defense Fund, which is probably the biggest sellout of all the organizations. They shouldn't even have the word environment in their name, but they were there supporting this bill. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I can tell you from being at the committee that NRDC, Environmental Defense Fund, League of Conservation Voters did support the bill. It would be good to ask them why. I won't speculate, but I can tell you that their support of the bill, alongside the oil and gas industry support of the bill, is not helpful and gives cover to politicians to vote for this thing. So we were pleased to see the Sierra Club stand with us. Several of the 350 Bay Area, SoCal 350 was there in opposition. Communities for a Better Environment. The environmental justice community is united against this bill. The Courage Campaign came out against the bill. Progressive Democrats of America, Consumer Watchdog, a lot of great groups.
Yeah.
Save Porter Ranch, which has been poisoned by SoCal Gas, the company that's trying to reopen the gas field in the San Fernando Valley, was there opposing this bill. So it's a heck of a fight, but Yeah, that's what I can tell you. And people should ask those groups why they are supporting this bill.
Well, I will tell you why they're supporting this bill, because they're sellouts. I mean, you and I fought SB 4, Fran Pavley's fracking regulatory bill in 2013, and they were one of the sponsors of it, them and League of Conservation Voters and two other groups who I won't name because I think they're basically good groups, but they were supporting that. And, you ask them why they support, and they say, oh, we want to have a seat at the table so that we can craft the bill. But in reality, their seat at the table, at least with SB 4, did not help them craft the bill. Because when Jerry Brown asked them to put on these amendments at the last minute that would have led to unregulated fracking for 2 years while the study was being done, they tried to use their seat at the table to get Fran Pavley not to accept the amendments. It didn't work, and they ended up pulling their name off the bill in the last couple of days. So in reality, I think what they're doing, and I don't mind saying so because I don't work for an environmental organization, what they're trying to do is get credit for these bills that really don't do anything, and in fact, some cases are the opposite of what they're supposed to do, so that they can go to their donors and their members and say, see, we passed the strongest fracking regulation in America, now give us money. Now, after that fight was over, we had, what's his name? I won't say his name, but you know his name, did a blog post to talk about how what we really need is a moratorium on fracking. And I called him out and I said, okay, Mr. What's your name? If that's what you believe, then why didn't you spend all the money that you spent on SB 4 trying to support Holly Mitchell's bill, which would have had a moratorium on fracking? And of course, he had no answer for that. So let me ask you something. Was NRDC and League of Conservation Voters supporting Wajkowski's bill, 775?
I'm not sure, Laura. I'm not exactly sure on who was supporting 775. 775 didn't even get a committee hearing. Didn't even come up for a committee vote. So that bill didn't have much traction. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it is important to call these groups out because they're very well known. A lot of people give them a lot of money, and they should be giving money to Food and Water Watch because you really are uncompromising. You fight for what's right. You're not even in favor of the oil severance tax, which a lot of people think, oh, these industries, they make so much money, they should have to pay. But you rightly pointed out, and you educated me about this, that if we make our schools and our social services dependent on this oil money, then what's our incentive to stop, getting it out of the ground?
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, we have come to a point of understanding, and I say we need to come to a point of understanding as a society. And to their credit, many scientists are saying this. They were saying this around the Paris Agreement, after the Paris Agreement. We have to get off of fossil fuels. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And and in our opinion, we need to do this by 2035 to have a chance at avoiding climate disaster. And for California, that could mean 10 feet of sea level rise. It could mean worse fires, longer droughts. The livability of California is at stake here, and the planet. And California needs to set a real example. And we hear people brag that California is the 6th largest economy in the world. Well, we're also the 2nd largest polluter in the United States after Texas. And we have a great opportunity to set a real example. And that's why we're so disappointed with this cap and trade situation, because it's really undermining the real leadership that we need to show in getting off of fossil fuels. And I see some discussion going around. I just want to make it clear. Sempra, SoCalGas, at a conference in San Diego a month ago, one of their executives told the conference that we're essentially ready to go to 100% renewable now. It's just a matter of managing the grid. And they're investing in some company to do that. SoCalGas is very much wanting to keep us dependent on gas because that's their business model. But it's not that complicated to get to renewable energy. It's a political problem. And that's really what's going on with this cap and trade fight, Lauren. All the differences of opinion. The big difference of opinion is whether we're going to accept these oil and gas companies running our energy system in perpetuity and that we have to follow their orders and just accommodate them, or whether we're going to have a real political revolution where we reclaim our democracy away from these companies and have the real climate policies we need to have a livable future. That's what's going on here.
Well, let's talk about the politics behind this, because we know why Jerry Brown is doing this. He's taken $9.8 million from the oil companies, and, Consumer Watchdog, which you mentioned, did a great report on that. And not just for his campaign and his reelection, but also for his Prop 30. Getting that bond passed, money for the schools, was very important to him. And I thought they gave him money for campaign, and I found out that the real thing was that they had threatened to spend money against it if he didn't, agree to not ban fracking. But so it's very complicated with Jerry Brown. He has this legacy. He wants to be known as a climate leader. He goes off to China and pretends to be the climate leader. He goes off to Hamburg for the G20 and pretends to be the climate leader. And yet he won't ban fracking because his family also has had years of interest in oil and gas, and his sister sits on the board of Sempra Energy. But what about Kevin DeLeon? I thought he was a hero for our movement. He's put forward some very good legislation, and there he was today, right next to Jerry Brown, supporting this compromise bill.
Yeah, it's very disappointing. There's a lot of pressure from the governor and the industry to go along with this. Kevin DeLeon says some nice things as well. Even his 100% bill, we feel accommodates the gas industry too much. And the 2045 timeline for the transition is way too long. It needs not take another 28 years. And so, this is the need. We have a real need for progressives to be running for office, and I just say, be straight up about that on our issues and other progressive issues as well. And we're looking forward to seeing people running for office in the state legislature in 2018. And this fight isn't over yet, by the way. There are several progressive state senators that need to hold strong on this to block the 2/3. They need a 2/3 majority to pass this cap and trade bill. They're trying to buy off Republicans. They might get a few. So we need our progressive senators, Holly Mitchell, Stern, Allen, Scott Wiener, to hold strong against this industry and vote no on this bill.
All right. So now how are we going to do that? Because we basically have till Monday. R.L. Miller told me, in fact, she could not be on the show today because she's too busy trying to get a press release out. She's trying to get environmental reporters, to cover this. Now, unfortunately, as Dan Bacher told me, he's like one of the last truly environmental reporters that there are even left in California journalism. And part of the reason that we have this problem is that, like Chris Hedges says in Death of the Liberal Classes, all of our institutions have either been neutered or co-opted. The institutions that are supposed to protect us, the media, the Democratic Party, journalism, the universities. We see the Koch brothers coming in and buying out entire economics departments of universities, putting in their Friedrich von Hayek, Ayn Rand style free market professors. We see Sinclair buying the Tribune broadcast stations, and they're even worse than Fox News, if that's even possible. And we see, the unions even. How many unions were there today testifying for this? The Building Trades Council, they're always on the wrong side of this issue, but there was SEIU. So, these are the traditional constituents of the Democrats. These are the groups that donate money to these Democrats. So if they've got the businesses supporting them, if they've got the unions supporting them, if they've got the media, not educating the public about the real issues, what chance do we, the people, have?
Well, everything you said is true and is a problem, but it doesn't mean we're down and out. I look at California, the California primary last year, and think of all those forces working against Bernie, and he still got almost 47% of the vote, and there was hundreds of thousands of ballots, I believe, that weren't counted. So I think there's a lot of recognition from the general public, and I give the public always more credit. A lot of people want to trash the public. I think the public are oftentimes smarter and ahead of the politicians. And so the work you're doing, the work Dan Bacher is doing, through our own email lists, we have a chance. We need to educate our neighbors, our friends, our family, and we got to get them activated. Calling your state senator and your state assembly, because this could go to the state senate and the state assembly on Monday. They need to be hearing from their constituents, and they need to be hearing very loudly and clearly that they need to vote no on AB 398. And that's what it's going to take. We need lots of phone calls. The inside lobbying power and pressure, as usual, the corporations are dominating that, and that's not a recipe for success. The grassroots has to rise up against this.
Well, let's talk about another issue here, because when I was calling my state Assemblyman Richard Bloom about this, his aide, Josh Kerpies, who does a lot of work on affordable housing, said that he had not spoken with the chief of staff about this bill yet, but one thing that he did hear is they were not going to get the affordable housing measures that they wanted. So here's the other thing that they do. In order to get people on board, this is how the sausage making is done. They'll pick a particular issue that's of a pet concern, such as affordable housing is for Richard Bloom, and they'll often offer to throw it into the bill. And that's how they get them on board. So, and of course, what they also do is they imply that they're not going to support their bills, and they're not going to put them on the committees, give them leadership positions. So the system is so rigged. It's just like really difficult to, I'm feeling very pessimistic today, as you can imagine, because I spent all morning watching this hearing, watching this amazing testimony, and seeing the committee vote in lockstep, at least all the Democrats, in favor of this horrible bill. And then, of course, we had our defeat with SB 562, where Anthony Rendon, who's supposed to be Mr. Progressive, stalls it, because Jerry Brown does not want that bill to pass his desk, and the Mod Dems do not want to have to take a bad vote, voting against single payer. So it's all well and good if they know they have a Republican governor like Schwarzenegger for them to, pass through single payer. But now that they have a Democratic governor, all of a sudden it gets stopped.
Yeah, you're right. Well, the Democrats have a political monopoly here in California. A lot of the corporate money, a majority of the corporate money, I believe, is going to the party. It's filtered through the party, filtered through the governor's campaign coffers. And these threats are made to support these bills. And the only way to overcome it was two ways. One, to have sufficient and lots of grassroots pressure, phone calls, visits, and sometimes you got to protest, as you know, Lauren, in front of their office if necessary. On top of that, we need to be running progressives who are accountable to the progressive movement. And that is, what I mean by that is defined on the agenda. Single payer, fracking ban, real greenhouse gas reductions, real affordable housing. We're not there yet, but the seeds are there. And so this legislature right now is not a progressive legislature. There's no if, and, or buts about it. For the immediate next 3 days, we need to hold those who are progressive on our side, and they need to be hearing from us loud and clear that we need them to stand with us and not succumb to the governor and the oil and gas industry. But to get real progressive legislation passed in the future, we need to be running progressives accountable to progressive organizations and grassroots movements. And that's going to mean running Democrats, independents, whatever, against Democrats in California, because frankly, they have a majority. So get ready for that.
Yeah, well, as you know, I told you that I have to go tonight to go downtown for the soft launch of Pat Harris's campaign. I don't really know anything about him, but he says he's a progressive, and he says he's with us on all these issues. And he's obviously going to be challenging Dianne Feinstein, who is a Democrat and most likely going to run. And you do know that we organized, Ben Becker and I, Retire Feinstein protests both in San Francisco and in Los Angeles. And we got her to hold her first town hall in the 24 years that she's been a senator. And at both town halls, she basically mischaracterized single payer, calling it government-run health care. So she knows full well what single payer is. So there you have that. And we also have in your area Stephen Jaffe, who's challenged Nancy Pelosi who basically, when asked a couple of weeks ago, do you think single payer should be part of the 2018 platform? She said no, because the public support is not there yet, even though a recent poll showed that 60% of the public supports single payer. So, you know, we've got these Democrats that pretend to be progressive. She loves to say how she supported single payer her whole life. And Anthony Rendon said he supported single payer for 20 years. And yet when it comes time to actually fight for single payer, they don't do it.
Yeah, it's a problem. And they're not going to do it until they feel they're in trouble politically. So progressives got to get it together. And we got to stop not only protest, but start running people for office.
All right. Well, let me ask you, is there anything more you want to add while we have you on? I know this is going to be a shorter show than usual, but are there any other campaigns that Food and Water Watch is working on that you want to plug? I did have Andrea Leon Grossman on from your organization a few weeks ago, but feel free to reiterate your major campaigns so people know what they are.
Well, on the energy front, it's all about getting off of fossil fuels, and that means winning a real mandated transition to 100% renewable energy for the grid, which does not include biogas, which SoCal Gas and Sempra are pushing. It means banning fracking. It means a real climate policy that mandates real reductions, what we're talking about right now, not cap and trade. And you know, that's what we're fighting for in LA, in California, and this is the fight of our lives. This is the fight of our generation. So you got a lot of great folks in Southern California doing great work. Don't be discouraged by today's committee vote. There's always a next time. And we have to keep building, keep organizing. And when we have setbacks, we need to use these as teaching opportunities to bring people to our side. So there's always a next time, Lauren. And this thing's not over.
Yeah.
So people really need to call their senators and their assembly members in the next 24 hours.
Okay, so I put your Facebook page on there. Also, Climate Hawks Vote is going to have something. I'm not sure if they have a Facebook page or they have a website, but they have two scripts, one for Democrats and one for Republicans, because Republicans need to hear a different argument as to why they should vote no on this. And basically, RL told me that if 4 Democrats defect, because they need a 2/3 majority to pass this, then we've won. So I want to encourage everybody who is watching this show to contact their state senator tomorrow, and then contact them again on Monday, and post something on your wall. You can share whatever post that Food and Water Watch is going to make about this. Hopefully you'll make a short post that people can spread virally and also can tweet out. And like RL told me, Ben Allen, for one, is going to be counting the calls. So he is my state senator here in the Los Angeles area. And he also was one of the co-authors of SB 562, another one who ran on being a progressive, who says he's being a progressive. But let's tell him that, he needs to walk the walk as well as talk the talk. And if he really wants to prove his bona fides, then he needs to vote no on AB 398. So thank you very much, Adam, for being on the show today. Keep up your good work.
Thank you, Lauren. Good to talk with you as always.
Yeah. And guys, you can tune into my channel tonight. My page, I'm going to be probably live streaming from this Pat Harris soft launch. So I'm going to be speaking with him and his campaign manager, Elena Christopoulos, and his communications director, Derek Marshall, who also worked on Jessica Sallen's campaign for city council here in Los Angeles. So as always, follow me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, Lauren_Steiner, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Lauren from LA. Have a great afternoon, have a great evening, and keep fighting.